I'm going to give you another really quick tutorial, and anything that I don't go that much into detail to, definitely on your own Google how to do things specifically. I feel like once you kind of know the basic landscape of Photoshop, you can kind of just easily Google how to do certain things that you're looking to do specifically when you need to do them. But today, what I want to do, because I feel like one of the big questions everyone always asks is how do you cut things out? Like I have this great picture, but I want to move it around. Um, so I'm going to do a really quick way. I'm going to show you quickly how 3 different ways that I use quite often to cut things out. In Photoshop, there's a lot of different ways that you could do something, but these are the ways I like to do. I like to work. So I'm just going to go to create new like we did last week, and you can actually see the last thing I opened on my personal computer was the 8.5 by 11. So let's do that again. 8.5 by 11 inches, 300 DPI, that's for printing. Hit create, and now you can take a look. Like mine opens up automatically to my character and my paragraph. Again, I mentioned last week that you guys may have to add that yourself. You see the layers down here, channel paths. There's a number of different things that pop up. My toolbars over there. So I'm going to show you 3 really quick methods, and like the reason why I use, this is just what works for me. I don't know that it's the best way, but I do think it's pretty easy and efficient. So depending what you want to do, you might approach it, different ways, and maybe there's even a better way to do something that you want to do specifically if it's more of an intricate shape. So I opened up 3 different images that we're going to cut out. I do like to cut out things off of a flat color background. I don't recommend going into trying to like move a person out of a beach setting. It's a lot harder. The color is really affected by it. Sometimes I'll do it, but I do try it at all costs just to have at least a flat color background that I can cut out from easily. White, in my opinion, is the best. Black is also good. So the very first way, and I think this is just kind of the easiest, is I want to cut out this arrow. So I'm going to turn off my, just for this so we can see it, I'm just going to make my background a different color. I'm just going to make it green. So that way you can just see what we're working with. Now, not that, this isn't a very pretty arrow. I just Googled things that I thought that you guys could see very quickly as to why this may work. The 3 different ways I'm going to show you guys how to do it, and if you're already familiar with Photoshop, you know this. This is really, again, this is how I just like to do it, is I'm going to show you how to erase something via the Magic Erase toolbar, which is right here. I'm also going to show you how to use, I like to use the lasso tool, the polygonal lasso tool is my favorite to use. Some people use the pen tool. I think it's a little bit more complex. And then I'm also going to show you how to cut things out using the channels button right here. So for something that is super simple, there is no highlights, there's no, like, I just want to do it really fast, so maybe I'm working really fast, I have a deadline. So I thought the arrow was a good example. It's a hard edge. We're not going to lose any content, any pixels for highlights. What I would do is I'd actually come over here, press and hold on the eraser toolbar in Photoshop, and you can see eraser, background eraser, go to a magic eraser. Now, when you click on it, you'll see this little icon. Again, depending on what Photoshop that you're working in, it may look a little bit different, but don't worry. And this is super simple. Make sure that you're on the correct layer. If I'm on the background layer, see this kind of gray bar, you might see it kind of highlighted in blue also, depending on what version you have. If I'm on the background layer, this isn't going to work. It needs to be on the layer that you want to cut out. So my layer right here is selected. I come over here and I literally just click on the white. I'm going to undo that again. Just literally click on the white and it's gone. Now you can actually see that right here, there must have been some text on here. You can definitely erase that. You can erase it using the eraser tool. Come over here and just delete it. Another way to do it is if you hit the marquee tool right here. This is what you generally use to select something. You can highlight it. Now, this is highlighted. I'm on my layer. I can literally just hit the delete button. That's exactly what I did. I just hit the delete button. In Photoshop, there's a number of different ways that you can do this. So let's step back again. The magic eraser. Come over here. Now, the downside of the magic eraser is if you do have a lot of, if your edge isn't really clean, it can get messy. You can't undo it. There's no mask. So once I do that, literally all I have here is an arrow. I can actually do it the opposite. So now I just cut out what I have as a white shape. And the reason I can do it so easily, again, is because it's a hard edge. I don't recommend getting into trying to do this with a person. I don't recommend if you're trying to do something on top of where there's a background, definitely don't use this. But if it's for something really quick, like some lettering or something, it's definitely a good way. So again, just click. Now, the next thing that I want, I'm going to turn this off. So I hit the eyeball button. I turn it off. The next thing that I want to show you guys is if I am going to use the lasso tool. And this is something that I kind of, use pretty often, actually. I come over here, the polylingual lasso tool. Now, the way that this works is you only get straight lines. But if you go slowly and take your time, it actually comes out pretty clean. I like it. It's just really easy to use. It's easier than the pen tool, in my opinion. Right now, I have it set to 1. There's a feather of 1 pixel. You can have it set to 0. I'm going to set it to 0 for right now. You can set it if you're working on a really large, file. You can set it to have a slight feather, but you might not like it by the time that you're done with all the work that you have. So all I'm doing is just like you would with a pen tool. Is I come over here, I follow the edge. Now this is round, so the more time that I take with it, the better. Because I am only getting straight lines, remember that. Now sometimes with this particular lasso tool is you possibly, sometimes it'll automatically connect itself and you don't want it to do that. So what I do, just to make sure that I don't lose anything that I've already done as far as like making my, lassoing around the object, is I come over here, you'll see like the little, if you're looking at my mouse, you see a little O. That means I'm going to close the lasso. I'm obviously not done. If you follow my mouse, if you look on top, you can see where if I hit what looks like I'm adding 2 shapes together, that will let me add to the mask. This will let me delete from the mask. Don't really use that all that often, the last one. And this actually is kind of the standard of where it is. So the reason you might want this set is because you can actually move your mask, which isn't something I want to do, but sometimes I do it. So right now, what I do want to do is add and subtract for, trying to make a good net mask. So right now I'm going to use add. You can see if you look at my mouse, I've now added to it. Now, as I come through and start highlighting out the pear, now you can see that I've actually joined those 2 highlighted areas together. I'm going to do the same thing for the top. Now I have the entire pear highlighted. What I'm going to show you next is probably one of the most important features in Photoshop is I want to use a mask. The purpose of using a mask is it's editable. If I want to make it a little cleaner, I want to make it a little softer, I want to feather the edge, I can go through and do it. If I was just to delete the white right now, that would be it, it'd be done. But with a mask, it lets you fix things. So I have my layer highlighted. If you're following my mouse, layer 2 is highlighted. Come down here, and it looks kind of like a little square with a circle. Click on that. Now I've literally just masked out that pear. What's really cool about a mask is you can there's many different ways that you can clean up this edge. So this obviously isn't perfect. I have my pear, it looks okay, but it doesn't look great. There's different ways that you can actually clean this up. One way is if you come over to the brush tool, which okay. So shortcut for brush tool is B. I just hit B and it selected it for me. I found it on my toolbar. If I come over to the brush tool, as if you follow my mouse again, you see I have black and white in the swatches. Watch what happens when I go on top of this mask. It's a crazy looking pear, right? When you have your black selected, I actually can add to what I have masked out. So if you take a look, around this pear is black. If you're looking at my mouse, this little mask is black and white, is where you see the pear. When your brush is set to black as well, you can actually come through and you can, so say I want to clean up this edge a little bit, I can, kind of come around and clean up this edge. Now, my brush is still pretty hard. Say I want to make it a little bit softer. I can actually change, if you come up here and you hit the arrow, I can actually change how soft or hard my brush is. So that's affected right here. My brush is really hard. If I want to make it really soft, you can start to see that's a lot softer than what it was before. This is going to even be softer. So once you kind of get into the using masks in Photoshop and using the brush tool, you can actually come through by hand and then clean this up to your liking. That's definitely one way to go about doing it. I think it's a really important feature. So when you have a mask, you can clean up the mask, like I said again. One way to do it is with your brush tool. And now say if I change my swatch to white, I'm going to be adding to that mask. So I'm not actually putting white on the pear because you can see I'm on top of the pear. What I'm doing is I'm actually bringing white from the background out. So again, when you have a mask, you can use the brush tool, either black or white, and you can either add or subtract to that mask. So you can add to the background, or you can take away from the background. It's a really important thing to use. And like I said before, depending how hard your brush is, that will depend on what it looks like when you're adding or subtracting to the mask. So right now my brush tool is set to really soft, and my line was really soft, and I thought it kind of looks really nice, right? That's already starting to look a little bit better. This is any mask that you have, you can do this too. So anytime that you have a mask, go to your brush tool, black or white will let you add or subtract, and then if you come up here, if you see when you're selecting on brush, you should be able to see what you see number 9 on mine. Yours might be set to something different. That's just the size. So, whoa, Nelly, that's a really big brush right there. So this is the size, softness and hardness, and again, black and white is going to let me add and subtract to that mask. So one thing I like to do is, if you hit Command, the key, Command, and you click on your, I think you can actually click on either the layer or the mask, but one feature in Photoshop that's really cool, and I use this all the time, especially when I'm going fast, is you can refine your mask. So I'm going to undo what I just did. I'm on my layer, so click on your layer. I believe you can click on either the mask or the layer itself, so either the pear or the mask of the pear. But if you hit the Command key, and at the very same time, click on that layer, click on the mask. And then sometimes it doesn't work. So I just did it. Command, click. Command, click. I'm basically just highlighting that mask. Another way to do it would probably be in your select area. You should be able to probably select your mask from there. But this is the way that I've always just learned, is Command and then click on the mask. Now, what you want to do is go up to Select, and in the old Photoshop, this is going to look different. If you're in Photoshop 2018, this has been updated, actually not for the better. So if you see select and mask, I don't actually like this new feature in Photoshop. I don't think it's as good as the original one. So what I do is I hit the shift key at the very same time and then I click on select mask. So you have to hit the shift key. Hit shift, select, and mask, and it brings me up, what's really cool is it brings up the old refine edge tool that used to be in Photoshop, and I think this is such a great tool. What this lets me do is it actually lets me, you can actually see, maybe I've gone too far, but like you can actually smooth, and you can feather your mask, you can make it, you can shift the edge, which is something that I do quite often, so I kind of shift the edge a little bit in, and then I smooth it out a little bit, and I might even feather it a little bit. So in here you can actually adjust the mask that you made really quickly all at once. So I think this is a really cool tool. What I like to do is I like to go output to selection. I change this to new layer with new mask, and then I hit OK. Now I have two pair layers. You can see the first one is really hard edge, layer 2. That's what I did really quickly with the lasso tool, and layer 2 copy right now is already quite a bit softer from just applying the refine edge tool. Now if you don't do this right, what you just do is click select and mask. You're going to see something that looks like this if you're following my mouse. I don't think that this works as well. You can, it definitely has the same principles. I just don't particularly like to use it. And when I found out I could actually use the original one, I prefer to do that. So click again, be on your layer, command click. You want your mask highlighted, and then come over here to select, and then you have to hold down the shift key at the same time. Don't let go of it. Hold on the shift key, hit select and mask, and it'll actually bring up the old refine edge tool. Now, if you're in an older Adobe Photoshop, you'll probably already have refine edge, and it'll look like this. So this is a really fast way of affecting the entire edge of the mask that you've just made. And it already looks way better than what I initially did. So again, don't forget that your brush tool, you can still add and subtract from any mask, and the mask is the black and white thing that is next to my pear shape. You can still add and subtract from any mask with the brush tool. So say I decide that I don't want this highlight right over here. I'm on the brush tool, it's set to black, and I'm going to make sure that my brush is nice and soft. So, this is hard, the hardest 100%. I have it set nice and soft, and then say I want to come in here and I just want to take out some of that highlight. I don't think the highlight looks good. And I can actually just do that by hand. And I might have went too soft, but you can see, you can imagine how you can easily clean up any type of shape that you want if you go really quickly. So I think that's a really fast way to do it. Again, what I did was I used my lasso tool right here. L is the shortcut for that. I lassoed out the shape that I wanted. Once I had the shape, if you're following my mouse, I came over here and I applied a mask to it. A mask is great because my arrow, there's no mask here, so that's the difference. If you take a look right now at layer 1, there's no mask. I'm going to zoom in. The edge that I've just made is what I have, and that's it. I can't go through and add and subtract. The mask lets you add and subtract and really kind of refine it. Also, quite honestly, if I was to do the magic eraser to the pear with all the highlights, it probably would have taken out quite a bit of the pear and it wouldn't have looked good. So those are two different ways that I end up using Photoshop to cut things out that I think is a pretty fast way. Of course, there's always better ways. You can spend more time making your mask better, going slower, really kind of cleaning things up a lot slower is always going to give you a more refined edge than what you just saw, but just very quickly you saw how I do it. And the last one, and I think this is kind of an important one to know, say you want to do a person. So I'm going to drag over here and put the person on. If I was to go through and say I did this, it looks pretty good. His hair's a little messy, but again, I can't really fix that because I just literally deleted that white. Now, if I was to do the lasso tool, the downside of the lasso tool is I can't come in here and really get all those hairs that you see. It's it's going to be kind of annoying if I had to do that. So what I like to do when I'm especially doing something that's like fine and intricate, hair especially, is I like to actually do it with it using the channels. So right now my channel option is right here. You may not have that. If you don't have channels open, go to Window and turn on channels. And it might not pop it up where my mouse is, but it'll give you the channels option somewhere on the screen. So I just pull it off so you can see it really quickly. And actually, before I do that, I'm going to turn off the background. Just for the purpose of using channels, I generally only like my layer that I want to select on. So remember from last time, the eyeball button right here actually lets you turn on and off different layers. So right now I just have layer 3 selected because I want to cut out this man's face. So I come over to my channels. RGB is showing red, green, and blue, and that's what's making up all the colors that I see. But I actually want to turn off everything but one layer. So right now, if I only have blue on, this is what he looks like. If I only have green on, this is what he looks like. And if I only have red on, this is what he looks like. The goal for doing this is pick the layer that has the most contrast. So that was clearly blue. If you look at the green and if you look at the red, they're not as much contrast. He has too many highlights in his face. It's too close to the white background. I want blue. So what you do is you don't want to edit on the blue layer because you'd be affecting your final the actual layer that you want to be cutting out. I don't want to be changing the way that the blue layer looks. So what I do is I actually physically drag and I pull it down. You'll see this like little, if you're following my mouse, it looks like a little black square. I drag and drop it on there. And then what I just did was I copied it. So I'll do that again. So drag my blue layer down to this little black square, if you're following my mouse, drop it, and I've copied my blue layer. So now I have 2 blue layers. This is just an extra throwaway blue layer. The next thing I do is I hit Command L. I'll do that again. Hit Command L. Command L on your keyboard. And what this brings up is it brings up your levels. Now, what levels do is it lets me control the lightness, the darkness, and the midtones really fast. And the goal of this, everything I'm going to be doing for the next couple minutes is going to try to make him silhouetted, as much contrast as I possibly can. Because the more contrast you have, the easier it is to subtract him from the background. So obviously, I pull the darks in, I'm going to probably pull my midtones down a little bit, and then probably pull my whites up. And it's a lot of back and forth because if you went too far, obviously this is too far. This edge looks awful. I'm not going to be able to cut anything out. So you want to make it as dark as you can without sacrificing the edge of what you want to cut out. So I think this looks pretty good right here. Now, remember what I said earlier, the blue copy layer is a throwaway layer. It doesn't matter. I can draw on it. I can do whatever I want. I still have my RGB, my red, green, and blue layers preserved. I'm not messing up my picture. So what I like to do is, if you come over here on the toolbar, you can do actually probably one of 2 things. You can literally take the black, your brush, and it's set to black, and I could be coloring this in. Because that is really what the goal is. That's one way that you can do it. But the downside is, watch, oops, I'm human and I made a mistake and I go past my edge. So if you're very careful, you can do the brush tool. You want to stay away from the edges. What I like to do is use the burnish tool. So if you take a look on your the burn tool, it looks like I don't use the shortcut for this, but it looks like it's the letter O. It should bring you the should turn it on. You have the dodge tool and you have the burn tool. The dodge tool lets you just edit the whites, and the burn tool lets you just edit the darks. So we want to edit the darks. So I'm going to hit the burn tool, and if you take a look, follow my mouse. If you're looking at the top of Photoshop, you can see where I have the range and the exposure. The range is do I want to be editing the shadows, the midtones, or the highlights? I don't want to be editing the highlights because the highlights, that's the white. I want to stay away from that. What I want to be editing right now is let's edit the midtones. And I'm going to have it set to 100%. I want this to work. I'm not trying to be gradual with this at all, so keep it set to 100%. This can be on or off. I like it on. I think it just looks a little smoother. Again, this is your burn tool. So it's O on the keyboard, and it kind of looks like a little hand, kind of making almost a little fist. And if you follow my mouse, set it to midtones. Now watch what happens when I draw on top of it. With the brush tool, I went totally out of range because I'm human and I just make mistakes. Now, with the burn tool, as I go over the edge, it doesn't affect it because I'm not editing the highlights. If I was to edit the highlights over here, then it would, which I don't want to do because I want to silhouette out this person. So keep it to the midtones. You can also do shadows depending on how much that you actually have to do. So this actually lets me, make my brush a little bit smaller, to make your brush a little bit smaller. The shortcut keys for that are the little brackets. The right hand bracket makes it bigger, the left hand bracket makes it smaller. The other place that you can do it is actually just come up here and you see the number 125 is my size. So now I've just lowered it to 59. So I'm going to go through and I'm literally, and you can see I can go against the edge. It doesn't matter because I'm not highlighting. I'm not coloring in the highlights. And then I'm going to go to my brush tool. So I hit B for brush. Now this is now brush. Watch. Be careful. You can mess up. I just want to get rid of his pupils. That's all. So I think that looks pretty good. He looks pretty silhouetted. Come back to your channels key. You see RGB. Red, green, and blue. And what I want to do is then you see your blue copy. I'm going to hit Command and click. So you can see now, I've done this a couple times. Command click lets you highlight something. So I'm going to hit Command click, and you can actually see, if we zoom in, there's actually a slight, I don't know if you guys can see it, but there's actually it's highlighted around the person that I just silhouetted. The only thing is, if you think about it, it's actually highlighting it's highlighting the white is what it's highlighting. I want to highlight the black. So I go to select inverse. Now, what was highlighted around the edge is now gone. Select inverse is going to give me the exact opposite. So right now, what I have highlighted is the white. Again, go to select inverse. I want to just highlight the person. So that way I'm not touching the edge. Now, come back to your layer. If you can see, when I just come over here, there's my channels. This is my layer. I literally just clicked on layer 3, and you can see my marquee is going around this man's face. Now, like we did before with the pear, come down here, and there is a little mask tool right here that I showed you before. That's how we got the mask around the pear. So layer 3 is highlighted, come down here and hit my mask tool, and my person is actually cut out. And it's actually cut out pretty good. I mean, like, I would definitely go through, and I'd have to smooth out just like I did the pear. I would do it in Refine Edge. I think it's a really easy place to do it, but it did cut out a lot of the little hairs that I would have missed if I did that by hand. So if I want to do the Refine Edge tool, Command click on my mask. Command click is going to let me highlight it, and then go to select and mask. Don't just click on it. If you see select and mask, I don't think it works as well as the old tool that used to be in Photoshop. Hold down the shift key, hit select and mask, and that's going to open up what's called the Refined Edge. Refined Edge used to be in old Photoshops. You might actually just have Refined Edge if you're working with like 2014 or something. And then, like we did with the pear, I would probably just smooth it out a little bit, and this is just trial and error. I'm really just kind of playing it by eye and seeing really what looks the best. This kind of got a little bit smoother. Maybe I might want to feather him out a little bit. This, like I said, let's make it a little more contrasty. Now, you can obviously go too far with this. It could not look good very quickly. What I like to do is I like to hit new layer with layer mask, just so I get a new layer. I'm not messing up anything I already did. Hit OK. And you can already see, compared to the original, this is going to be looking better. a little bit of a halo, and this one doesn't have it. So now don't forget, I'm also super zoomed in. You're probably not going to see it that much. These are the three different ways that I like to highlight, that I like to delete a white background. Now, you can imagine I've just done that with a white background. If you are trying to subtract someone from a colored background, it is a lot more complex, and I tend to avoid it unless it's really the perfect image. It is a lot harder, and you're not going to want to use the channel tool because you have too much going around. I really would suggest the best way to do that would be using either the lasso tool. What I like is this, just go really slow, or using the pen tool, which is right here. And the pen tool is very much like the lasso tool, but it lets you make curves. I don't, it's an important tool. I don't use it. I don't love it that much. I mean, like, if I want to mask something, if I want to make a shape, I would use it, but not if I'm masking. I'll just use the lasso tool. I just like to go really slow. So I think that we really learned a couple key features today. The magic erase lets you get rid of the background really fast. You're only going to use that if it's a really hard edge. You might use it against letters. You might use it against a vector shape that you want to get an image of that you don't want to have the background. With what we did with the pear tool was we used just by hand, we just drew a nice simple mask using the lasso tool around it, and the difference between the arrow and the pear is we were able to add a mask to it. The magic eraser just deletes it. It's literally just an eraser. With the lasso tool, what I'm doing is I'm marqueing and I'm selecting it. So once I selected it, if you follow my mouse, I came down over here and I hit the mask tool, and that's what gave me that little black and white shape that's letting me see where that let me kind of isolate out the background of the pear. And then what I did, just to recap, is I hit Command I had to be on the layer, Command, click, Command, click, clicked on the layer. It came up here, I went to select the mask. You may have a refined edge, which if you do, that's great. Hold down the Shift key, don't let go of it, and then click Select the Mask. That gives me the Refined Edge tool. And then I came in here and I played around with softening my edges. And again, don't forget, even if it doesn't come out perfect, say it just looks a little better, you can still use your brush tool. So hit B for brush, or come over here in the toolbar, follow my mouse. As long as I have my black and white swatches set up, I can come over here onto as long as also, one thing is, you have, on your layers, guys, take a look. I'm clicking on layer 2, but I'm clicking on two things. If I click on the object on the left, the pear, the colored image, I'm actually going to be drawing on top of the pear. You don't want to do that. Click on the mask. You want to be editing the mask. Black and white is going to add and subtract to the mask. So, like I showed you before, when you hit the brush tool, you can add or subtract to your mask, so that way you can actually just make it look really good. And then the third way, and this is a lot more complex, but it's really good for things that have a lot of fine detail like hair, is I used the channels, I duplicated my layer, and then what I did was I used the burn tool, which is right here. It's O on the keyboard. It looks like a little fist, and that let me actually just color him in black, really silhouette him out without affecting the highlights. So if that seemed at all confusing, just rewatch it again. You guys can totally Google, like, how to mask something using channels, how to make a mask. Now you're starting to understand the language that you need to learn in Photoshop. So I think that just think of this video as a starting point, as a really quick way to get you familiar with what you're looking at when you open up Photoshop. But to this day, I'm always looking up how to do something better, more efficiently, or if I see something done that I don't know how to do, or someone else do something near me, I'm like, oh, that's a really, I just add it to my toolkit of things I can do, and, I just learn it. So that was, again, a little bit more complex. We edited that in the channels tool. We did that in the channels tool, and for some reason, if you are playing around in channels, like you want to cut out somebody's hair, and it doesn't look right, like look, it looks, this color looks weird. It's because I actually had my duplicate layer that I had made. And I remember if I made that blue copy layer, I just made it so I can cut out the person. That's not meant to be on all the time, so just turn it off and it comes back. As long as you have your RGB layers on, red, green, and blue, your color will look fine. So I hope that you guys can follow along with me. I know that was a bit of a crash course. What I would suggest is, if you do have to cut out something that's super intricate, let's talk. Really, I think what you guys should be doing, and I think it's just the easiest way, and just go really slow, is cutting out things with your lasso tool. The top lasso tool actually lets you just do it freehand, and the bottom one is magnetic, so it's going to be selecting things based on kind of like large shapes. So it should be kind of following the bridge of his nose. I don't particularly love that. I just think that I can do it better by hand, at least with the lasso, with the polygonal lasso tool. That's just my personal preference. But anything, play around with it and take a look and see really what works best for you. Thanks so much. Bye.